Have you considered quitting full-time ministry in the last year? A 2022 Barna Group survey found that 42% of pastors said yes. I read that survey and I said, that's too high. It haunts me. How does a pastor get to the point where they're like, I don't know, God, did you call me? Do I really have what it takes to keep doing this? Is this even worth it? Nah, I don't even want to do this anymore. Passion fades when ministry gets hard, when you're exhausted, when people wear you out. So when the tank's empty, when it feels more dark than light, when you just don't want to do it anymore, what do you do then? 42% of pastors are thinking about quitting. So I want to share with you what I've learned personally and what I'm seeing with other pastors that I serve. Here are 3 ways to invite the Lord to refresh your soul, to reinvigorate your passion for ministry, to replenish your relational capacity. Hey, I'm Matt, and I provide gospel guidance to encourage and equip pastors to thrive in their spiritual, emotional, and relational health. You can get started by downloading my free guide, 7 Keys to Balance Your Personal and Ministry Life. I'll leave the link below. All right, the first thing a pastor must do is reprioritize spiritual health. So how do you reprioritize your spiritual health? You're great at preaching. You communicate God's word with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, but the real question is, why are you doing that? In his book, Preaching and Preachers, Martin Lloyd-Jones warns, to love to preach is one thing. To love those to whom we preach is quite another. But most importantly, to love the one about whom we preach is essential. What can happen is you can spend so much of your time getting something from God for your people, like going to the Word for the sake of giving it to someone else, that over time you drift. If you continue to go to the Lord for the sake of somebody else, if you continue to mine the Scriptures for the treasure you can share with someone else, over time you'll know a lot about Jesus, but you'll drift away from Him and you'll lose authentic connection and intimacy with Him. The pastor who knows more about doctrine than the Lord who gave it is a wayward man. The solution? Return to your first love. This is the greatest thing you can do for your spiritual health. Tell the Lord you've drifted off course. He knows. Ask Him to reorient you to who He is and who you are in Him. And then set aside time and protect it to invest in your relationship with Him. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give His life as a ransom for many. Jesus wants to serve you. He wants to serve you. He's more interested in what He can do for you than what you can do for Him. So the question for you is the same question Jesus asked the blind man. What do you want me to do for you? He asked you the same question He asked Nicodemus. You're a respected teacher, and you don't understand these things? He invites you to receive the same thing He offered to the woman at the well. If you knew the gift of God and who it is saying to you, give me a drink, you would ask Him, and He would have given you living water. Like He asked the man at the pool of Bethesda, do you want to be healed? So how do you respond? Go back to the things you did in the beginning. Invite the Lord to be your strength, not church stuff. Remember what Jesus said to the Pharisees in John 5:39 through 40? You study the Scriptures diligently because you think that in them you have eternal life. These are the very Scriptures that testify about me, yet you refuse to come to me to have life. Here's my translation. Hey guys, you're so good at Bible study. You know the Word. You talk about it well, and you'd probably just like to do small group all day long if you could. The problem is you fail to come to me to have life. You're teaching the Bible to make yourself look good more than you care about the people you teach, more than you care about your relationship with me. Look, I know what it's like to preach 45, 50 weeks per year, the burden, the grind, the weariness that sets in. Every week it's like climbing a mountain, like picking up little morsels along the way and putting them in your backpack. And then on Sunday, like getting to the top of that mountain and just taking that pack off your back and heaving it off the side of a cliff. And you hope it lands well. You hope it makes a positive difference in people's lives, but you never really know. And then on Monday, it starts all over again. It's so easy to get locked into that rhythm that you don't take time to pick up and hold on to the things the Lord wants to give just you. And before long, we end up wandering like 2 degrees off trail and we get lost. And so we stop enjoying the journey altogether. If you want to enjoy healthy, long-term, sustainable ministry, your first priority as a pastor is to reprioritize your spiritual vibrancy and health by returning to Jesus, your first love. Okay, the second thing a pastor must do is grow in emotional health. It boggles my mind that all my kids were required to take sex education, health education, and driver's education, but none of them were required to take emotional education, which is crazy because emotional immaturity leads to poor health, sexual hurt, and really bad driving. My favorite TV show is Alone. And the reason many participants tap out isn't because they're hungry or they hurt themselves. The reason they tap out is because they miss somebody they love. Alone in solitude and silence, they begin to discover and process the narrative of their inner life and reflect on the things that are most important to them. In season 11, the guy I thought might win because he was so talented, super smart, like completely capable, came to the realization that he had never dealt with his emotions. And he shared how he always stuffed his emotions and how the emotions of his son made him uncomfortable. And he was teaching his son to stuff his emotions too. And then he admitted that from an early age, he learned the best way to deal with his emotions was to deny his emotions, not to actually deal with them, to feel them, to express them. And spending a week alone, dealing with all those past unfelt, unprocessed, unreleased emotions, coupled with having and missing a son and treating him and his emotions in the same unhealthy way, broke him down. He admitted that he'd been crying for 8 days and he couldn't stop. And then on day 8, he said, I've got to deal with my emotions and I can't do that here. I need help. So he tapped out and went home to grow in his emotional health and repair his relationship with his son. Guys, if you don't want to tap out of ministry, you've got to deal with your emotions and you've got to grow in your emotional health. And that means a few things. First, you've got to know where your emotions come from. Emotions begin with God. God expresses love, joy, anger, sadness, even jealousy. And through the expression of emotion, God shares his heart and strengthens his relationship with us. And second, because you're made in God's image, God gives you emotions. God gives you emotions to keep you safe. God gives you emotions to connect well relationally with him and also to be able to connect with yourself and with those that you love and lead around you. So emotional health means identifying, experiencing, and expressing emotions as God intended you to. And when you do, emotions help you thrive. Emotions help you move toward what is good and helpful and away from what is bad and harmful. The third thing is that your emotions aren't under your conscious control. So you can't stop emotions from happening, but you can choose how you respond to your emotions. So rather than rejecting emotions and stuffing them down, you can be curious about your emotions. You can learn from them and you can use them for your well-being and for the well-being of those around you. Fourth, you need to know your core emotions like hurt and loneliness, sadness, anxiety, guilt, shame, fear, anger, disgust, gladness, and excitement. Being able to identify these emotions, actually locate them in your body, and then express them in a healthy way blesses you. It builds you up. It enables you to bless and build up those around you. And when you can learn to do that, you can also learn how to care for those who are dealing with really difficult emotions. The problem is that we've learned to mistrust and deny our emotions rather than to understand them as God-given tools for our well-being. So emotions get stuck in our nervous system. They get trapped in our body and we get sick. And then we try to medicate ourselves out of it, and we never really get free and use the emotions God's given us to draw us to the good and to move us away from the bad. We get into all sorts of relational conflicts as a result of this. And what ends up happening is like we get wound up like one of those cheap Zebco fishing reels. And I don't know if you've ever untangled one of those things, but it takes a lot of time. It's not fun. So I don't know how many times I've been sitting with a pastor only to discover a significant reason for the conflict that they're having with their elders or with a certain group in the church that's causing them to want to leave ministry is their own emotional immaturity. They're stuck emotionally. And I don't say that in a degrading way. I'm just saying that we don't learn anything unless someone helps us, unless someone teaches us. You didn't learn how to talk by yourself. You didn't learn how to pour a bowl of cereal by yourself. You didn't learn how to ride a bike by yourself. And you don't learn how to navigate emotions in a healthy, godly way by yourself. For me, growing in emotional health began with an intentional process. I started reading books, but that really wasn't enough. So I got some coaching, and then I got some encouragement from a spiritual director who gave me a safe place to process what I was learning and help me identify my emotions, like really feel them and begin to express them in a safe environment. This is how I'm trying to encourage you, because if we don't deal with our emotions, especially our negative ones, they will eventually deal with us. So if you want to enjoy ministry long-term, you've got to grow in your emotional health. You've got to learn how to identify, process, experience, and express your emotions in a healthy way. The third thing a pastor must do is mature in relational health. One of the most helpful psychological frameworks, and perhaps the one most aligned with the gospel, is attachment theory. And attachment theory says you need to be able to practice 3 skills for healthy, growing, meaningful relationship: attunement, containment, and repair. Attunement is about the ability to be present with someone in a way that makes them feel heard and understood. It's when you bear with another, especially in their suffering and grief, and serve as a kind, empathetic, compassionate witness to their story. Being attuned means showing up without anxiety, offering a calm, supportive presence that promotes safety and connection. There are ways you can learn how to attune to others better and really well, but nobody learns how to do that in isolation. Henry Nouwen said, "The friend who can be silent with us in a moment of despair or confusion, who can stay with us in an hour of grief and bereavement, who can tolerate not knowing, not healing, not curing, that is a friend who cares." The second skill is containment. Think container. Just as you're a vessel bearing the image of God set aside for noble purposes, so is every single human being. So containment is about honoring the dignity and worth of each person in your life by holding them with kindness and compassion, empathy and encouragement. And people have all sorts of emotions. They've got successes, they've got pain, they've got relational brokenness. And the most essential way to be Christ's presence to them is to contain them or to hold them relationally. And so you've got to strengthen your relational muscles. Only relationally healthy and strong pastors are able to support someone going through a really difficult time. Only relationally healthy and strong pastors are able to do that and remain unaffected when someone disagrees with you or someone confronts you inappropriately or someone betrays you or rejects you or abandons you. Richard Foster writes, "The first step toward God is a step toward your brother or sister. We must turn toward each other. For in the brother or sister, we see the face of God." The third skill is repair, and that's the ability to mend what gets broken. As a pastor, you've got to be a conflict ninja, a conflict guru. I mean, super Yoda-like. And the problem is, a lot of us grew up in conflict-averse families of origin. And a lot of us have been really hurt and wounded by inappropriate, unhealthy conflict. But Jesus shows us what relational repair looks like. It's all about humility. Humility that leads to forgiveness. He's done that with us, and he says we're to do that with one another. We're to love one another by forgiving one another as he forgives us. John Stott wrote, "Forgiveness is as indispensable to the life and health of the soul as food is for the body." Relational health requires maturing in the skills of attunement, containment, and repair. Y'all, 42% of pastors are thinking about quitting. Don't let that be you. The way you move out of that 42% of pastors who want to quit and into that 58% of pastors who feel confident and connected and eager to continue in ministry is by attending to your spiritual, emotional, and relational health. A failure to attend to our interior life makes us like a poorly pressurized submarine. The external pressure of pastoring will become greater and greater, more than the internal pressure of Christ within us, and it will eventually crush us. Pastors, I see you. I see the stress, the weight of decisions, the loneliness when it feels like no one truly understands. I know the deep cuts from political divisions, both in the church and in the world, and the conflicts they cause. I hear your heartache for your family and the fear that ministry may be hurting those you love the most. Maybe numbers are declining and you're doubting the future of the church, or your vision doesn't match the church's direction. You carry so much unspoken disappointment, and maybe deep down you feel disrespected, unappreciated, and honestly ill-equipped for the weight of your responsibilities. But here's the truth. Your calling was never about ease, but about the holy passion and the faithful commitment to make a difference through the power of the gospel. And you're not alone. You don't have to walk through this by yourself or burn out trying. I want to invite you to prayerfully consider joining the Fully Formed Leadership Journey, a small cohort of pastors meeting twice a month on Zoom to grow together in spiritual, emotional, and relational health. You can learn more on my website. I'll leave the link below. Before you go, I just want to encourage you. You can thrive in healthy, gospel-centered leadership, and you can make a significant long-term impact without burning out trying. Please get the encouragement and the support you need, and discover how God can use today's struggles to strengthen your leadership for tomorrow. The Lord is with you. The church needs you. Please don't quit. The breakthrough is often just past the breaking point. Hey, if this video was helpful to you, it would be super helpful to me if you would like, comment, and subscribe. And meanwhile, check out these next 2 videos. If there's anything I could do to serve you, don't hesitate to reach out. Until then, I'll see you on the next video.